Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For the first time comers here, my name is CPU. In today's video, we're going to be knocking out this quiz application using the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire API. So I found myself really enjoying this application with my family and my kids. I think this is a great application if you just want to have some fun time with your kids and just test your general knowledge of the world and what you know. And we're going to be building this using Reactjs and also styling it with Taillwindcss. So go ahead and create your React application by running npx create-react-app space and name it what you want to name it. Let it run, and once that has run, you will be ready to install Taillwindcss. So let me just quickly drag this onto my screen. So as you guys can see here, Taillwindcss gives you a step-by-step guide on how to install it with your React application. So go ahead and follow along with this guide. Do everything exactly as they ask you to. Make sure that you do change your React script start to Grogo start, because Taillwindcss requires that in order to generate the CSS into your files, and that's the only one I've actually changed because I'm not going to build out my application and I'm not going to test it. So make sure you do have this config file, make sure that you do have this tailwindconfig.js file, and most importantly in your index.js file of your React application, make sure that you've copied and you pasted this utilities and components that Tailwind requires to generate the CSS into your application. Once you have done that, you are ready to follow along with where I'm at with this application. So we can go ahead and clean up our application by removing all of the files that we do not need. Some files like the test app files and web vitalities, all of that deleted. You don't need it. And make sure that in your index.js file, if I just click on it, you do remove the imports, or else you're going to get an error if you don't remove those imports. The same goes with your app.js. I remove the logo, so remove those imports right there on top in order for me not to get an error. So what I'm thinking is that once you have done that, you are ready to follow along with this video. So now you should be having the same file script that I have. This by yours would initially say something like app right over there, and then inside here will have all of that code that React generates on default when you run the app the first time. I just went ahead and removed everything, and this was actually supposed to be h1 and not just h, and just say quiz app just to make sure everything is running. I've changed my class name to container, save it, and then let's run this application quickly. So what I'm going to do is say npm start. And while that is running, I highly suggest you guys take a moment to click on the subscribe button if you haven't done so. Click the bell button to make sure that you get notification every time I publish a new video so that you don't miss out. And as I try with most of my application, is that I'm going to leave some part for you guys to complete with this application in order for you to actually practice coding, not just to follow along with this video, but to extend this application and complete it. And that is way at the end, so you're going to need to stick around for this video right through to the end. My quiz app is running. That is correct. We are ready to get coding this application. So the first thing that you want to do is actually go ahead and get the information from the API. So what I'm going to do is quickly off screen, I'm just going to copy the URL, and I'm going to go ahead and create my function. So the first thing I want to do is inside my function app, I'm going to say const get game data, which will be an arrow function. So I'm just going to create an arrow function, and my arrow function is actually going to be an asynchronous function. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to say let response equal to await fetch, and I'm going to paste in that API. I'm just going to pause here for a second or two so that you guys can quickly have a look at that URL. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this URL inside of the description of this video so that you can easily copy it there and use it in your own application. I'm also going to push this up to my GitHub so that you can get these files of this quiz app if you guys want to go ahead and check the code. So the next thing I want to do, I'm just going to say let data equals to await the response .json, because that returns a promise for us, and then data should be what I currently have. So if I go ahead and say console.log, say data over there, what I can do is just save. This is not gonna run or do anything because nothing is calling this function. So what I need to do is just use effect to call that function. Let me go down here and say use effect. So if I go ahead now and click enter, you guys will see it auto imports my use effect right there on top. So I can do that. Let me just go ahead and do use effect, and I'm gonna say get game data, which is that function that I'm calling, and we're not going to have any dependencies. So let me just save that. Now if I do that, as you guys can see here in my console, let me just go up there. If I open it up, you guys will see that I'm getting an array with an index of games. If I open up games, I have this 5 entries of an array. Open that up. I have my questions, which is also an array of 15 questions, and then I can open up and see each question over there. So I do get the data back from the API, which is working just fine. So what I'm going to do now that I have data, I'm going to go ahead and set up some variables, which is going to store the data, and also some variables that is going to help me along with the creation of this application. So let me just close that console there. And what I'm going to do right here on top as well, I'm just going to say const, and I'm going to do some use state. So I'm going to say current game, and I'm going to say set current game, and that's equals to use state. I'm just going to hit enter to auto import that use state, and that's going to be an empty array, which will be the holder of this data over here, that empty array. And I'm going to go ahead and say const current question, and I can go ahead and say set current question, and that's also going to be use state, and that's going to be a number, which is just 0. And then what I want to do is also display your score for you. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's say const, say player score, set player score, and you're gonna start off with 100, and I'm just joking, everybody starts off at 0. And what I'm gonna do is maybe just these 15 questions, but I just want to set a max question of 10. So I'm just gonna say max questions, and I'm gonna say set max questions. I'm gonna say use state, and I'm gonna put that at 10. And then lastly, what I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna like const, let's do current game playing, and I'm gonna go ahead and say set current game playing, and that's also gonna be use state 0. Okay, now that I've set up some of my variables, let me go ahead and just set my game. So what I'm going to do here, instead of console.logging that, I can go ahead and say set current game, and then my current game is going to be data dot games, and games was is an array at position 0 dot questions. Just close that bracket. Question. So if we quickly go back here, let me see if I can still see it at object here. So what I'm saying is that this object, which is currently data, I'm saying dot games. So I'm entering this array of games, and I'm saying the first entry, which is entry 0, and I'm saying questions, which is that array. I'm taking that array and I'm saving it to this empty array. So I'm overriding this empty array with this 15 questions array. That's what I'm doing over here. Okay, so now that we have that set up, let's go ahead and start designing the layout of the website. So what I'm going to do is just quickly close this again. I'm gonna close that. And here by quiz, so because I'm using Tailwind CSS, I can actually just use class based, and then the classes that I'm going to use here, they are like very lower level. For instance, if I go ahead now and say H for height and I say screen, so as you guys can see, my Visual Studio Code indicates to me that I'm setting the height of this div to 100 VH. So I can go ahead and do that. And next thing I want to do, I just want to say flex, and then my flex is going to be call to set my flex direction to columns. And then inside of that, let me just remove this. I'm going to have another div, and this div is going to have my h2, which is going to be my title, and this is who wants to be a millionaire. I think everybody wants to be a millionaire. Well, I think it's trillionaire by now. Millions is not that much anymore. So let me say class name. Let's do that. So I'm gonna say text, there's center to centerize my text, and I'm gonna say padding on the y-axis of 4, which is going to add me a padding of 16 pixels or padding of 1 RAM. And I'm gonna do a header background pg. I'm just going to show you guys now quickly that class that I already have in my index.css, which is not part of Tailwind CSS. That's a custom class. So I am able to mix Tailwind classes with my custom classes to get the look and feel that I want. So I'm just going to add a shadow to this. So my shadow is going to be empty. And I'm going to say my text, I want my text to be large. And then my font, I want it to be semi-bold. And then my text color, I want it to be white. So as you guys can see, I can add classes to design the element exactly as I wanted. For instance, in Bootstrap, if we had a button, what we would normally do is just the following. You'll have a class, I'm just say class name, in example, say BT, and then you can say BT danger, right? So this BT danger would contain your padding, it will contain maybe your margin, your border radius, etc. You don't really have control over that, and it also adds that background color red for you, so you don't really have control over that in Bootstrap. But this is not Bootstrap, so yeah, this is going to give me an error. But with Tailwind CSS, I can actually have control exactly over each element of that class. So for instance, if I was creating a button that looks like the danger button, I would go ahead and say, okay, what I do want is a padding on the y-axis of, let's say, maybe 2, and then a padding on the x-axis of double that of 4, and then I want my background color, so I can say BG, I want it to be danger red, so I can use, let's say, use that red. I want my text inside to be white, so I can say text white. And what else do I want? Let's say I want to border radius, so I can go ahead and say rounded. So let's say rounded MD. If I save that, let me see, what am I missing? That div. I'm not quite sure why am I getting a squeaky bracket there, use effect. That seems to be right. Just want to make sure. My return div, class name, closed, then say class name, closed, h2, open, close, button, class name, open, close, button, close, div, close. And then over here, is it this return? I think somewhere I have a bracket where I'm not supposed to have a bracket. There I'm supposed to have a bracket on line 24, it's saying. Let me just see here at the bottom this error. So fail to compile, button closed up. Let me just see if I comment this out. If I comment this out. Aha, I'm missing a closing div tag. There we go. So over here I should go ahead and do that. There we go. So I was missing a closing div tag for that div. Let me save that. And as you guys can see, I have my button over there. So, but I have control exactly of what I want this button to do. For instance, this would be my, say my button danger class generates with this, but I want this round to be fully rounded, not just that small rounded. So I can go ahead and do round full. Let's save that, and I get that just by changing that. So yeah, Taillwindcss does give us nice power, if I can put it that way, over our elements and how we want to style them and how we want them to look. I'll definitely say invest in learning Taillwindcss. If you guys would like me to do a full-on playlist just regarding Taillwindcss, covering what you would mostly use in the class you guys would mostly use, let me know in the comments, and I will definitely get back to you guys with regarding that. So next thing that I want to do is, let me add another div over here. So in this div, I'm also just going to add a class name, and this div is going to be my game container. So I can go ahead and say items. So I want my items centered here. I'm going to say justify center as well, and margin on the y-axis I want it to be auto. And what I'm going to have is an image, and I'm going to import this image shortly. So I can go ahead and do that, and I'm going to add some, let me just do a closing, take away that bracket. And let's go ahead and just call this image. As you guys will see, I already have that image here. I called it quizlogo.png. You can download this from the API site as well. You guys will see it's a GitHub repo. I just went and made mine transparent. That one wasn't transparent, just to make it look a bit better. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to do an import here on top. So import, I'm going to call it quizlogo from this current directory and logo.png. Let's copy that, paste it there, and style this logo also using Tailwind classes. So what I want to do is just set this logo's width by just doing width is equal to a quarter of the screen, which is like 33.33%. And also I'm going to do a margin on the x-axis of auto, so it's centerized, and margin bottom of 4, so I'm putting a margin bottom of 16 pixels. And then just right below this, I'm going to do my div, just enter that. So I'm going to do class name, let's do text, it's going to be large, my text is going to be center. And I'm going to add this default class that I've created, which is called btn primary. That gives me that orange background. And in here, I'm just going to go ahead and show the current question. So let's say current question. As you guys remember, in my variables, current question would be 0. So, but for user interface, you don't want to start by question 0. You want to start by question 1. So what you can do is just say question plus 1, just add space there, / out of 10 questions, and let's just do that so that the user know how many questions are left. So that's the first question out of 10 questions. And then just below that, let's go ahead and do a div. So currently we're just doing this, the styling, the look and feel of the application at this moment. Let me just save this so we can also see in real time what we currently have. As you guys will see there, we have the current question, we have the logo, the margin on the y-axis, like top and bottom, is evenly because it pushes us to the center of the screen. What I'm currently doing now is that I'm gonna loop out, or not loop out, like display the question. So over here, I'm just gonna add a padding of, let's say a padding of 3. So that's padding all around of 3. And I'm gonna say my text or my question, I want it to be 2XL, which is 24 pixels. And then I'm gonna put it center. And then right here, I'm just going to echo out my current question. And that I'm going to do by entering my variable, which is called current game. If you guys do remember, current game was an array, right? So I need to get the position of the array. So I can go ahead and put in 0 here. And then I can go ahead and say question. Sorry about that. If I save it, I should get an error, if I think. Yeah. So it says cannot read property 0 of undefined. So let's quickly have a look. So I have an array. Aha, questions is misspelled correctly. So that's questions. If I save it, objects are not valid as React children. Let me see, where's that error coming from? I'm just gonna clear everything out over here, and I'm gonna say dot question. Let me just save this. Just want to see where that error comes from. Cannot read property question of undefined at app 30, which is that one. Just gonna quickly check this. And there we go. So what I'm gonna do is this 0, it's hard coded actually, which means this question will never change. I actually want to change this to the variable that I created, which was current question. I can go ahead and change that to that variable, say current question. This should still work, okay, because current question is 0 right there on top, and that we're going to change once a user clicks on an answer, and then we're going to change that current question. So we have the current question. So what I need to do now is answers container. So let's do that. I'm going to create a div, not a dv, and then this div is just going to have padding. That's all I want to add for this div. So I'm going to say padding all around of 3 pixels, and then inside of this div I'm going to go ahead and loop out this current game. So I can go ahead and say current game at current position, which was current question. And then what I'm going to do, say the same as I've done here with the question, to say once this exists, do the following. Once the content exists, which is also an array on its own, just map it out for me. So in here, I'm just going to do that. So what I do want out of this is the current answer, and that answer's index. So I'm going to use that answer and that answer's index. And in here, let me just do the design of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is a div. I'm going to close that div tag. And I'm going to do this in a new line. I'm just going to hit Control B quickly just to close the sidebar over here, because I'm not really using it. And then I have more space to work with. Hit Control plus just to increase my font. I think that's way too much. I think let's keep it that way. If the font is too small, guys, let me know in the video. Next time I'll just increase it, but I think that was way too big. Just going to work on uline. So the first thing I want to do, whenever you're iterating over something, an array or so, React will nag you for a key. So what I'm going to do, use for the key, is just the index of the current question, and then I'm going to add my class name. So I'm going to add a couple of classes here. The first one is container to give me a full width, and then the next one is items center. Item center, I want them to be center. I want the display to be flexbox. I want a border, and then my border, I want it to be gray. So I'm just going to say border gray 700, and I want a margin bottom of 2, which is around 8 pixels. And I'm going to do my corners to be rounded. So I want them rounded 3XL, around 24 pixels. And whenever you hover over this box, I want it to show you the cursor. And then also on here, I'm going to have an on-click function. So I can go ahead and do that. On-click. And then on-click is going to call a function. And then that function is just going to go ahead and update information. So say update game info. So for now, I'm just going to console log that, update game info. And then inside of this, let me go ahead and create another div and a closing div. Cool. So I'm going to add my class name as well. And then the class name, I'm going to have a padding on the y-axis of 2 and a padding on the x-axis of 4. I'm going to have a background, which is gray, 700. You guys can actually go ahead and style this application as you want to style it yourself. This is just, yeah, my preferences to quickly knock something out for you guys. So let me do that. That's large. And I'm going to do rounded corners, the same as the one on top of 3XL. I'm going to do a margin all around of 1, just for a little spacing. I'm going to add some shadow into this one. So my shadow is going to be mid shadow. And my last class that I'm going to use is that class that I've created, which is just button primary. That's about it. And then inside of this div, what I'm going to have is the index plus 1, because the index actually starts at 0, but I don't want it to start at 0. I actually just want it to start at 1. So that's why I'm saying 0 plus 1, because there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 answers instead of 0, 1, 2, 3 answers. And now let's go ahead and loop out the answers. But first things first, let's do some styling on this div as well. And I'm going to have the same as on top, say padding on the y-axis of 2, padding on the x-axis of 4, and the text is going to be gray, 700, and then my font is going to be semi-bold. And then in here, I'm just going to echo out the answers, or I'm just going to, yeah, echo out the answers, sorry, PHP creeping in there. And that's about it. So what we should have now is our question with our answers looping out. So if I save this, do we have any errors? So nothing is showing because I am not returning this information. So there's two ways how I can do this. Is actually just enter the return keyword and wrap that around, or I can just change this curly braces from that to actually just the normal ones. And if I do that, let's see, 1, 2, which is this one over here, and then those will actually return this JSX in here. If I save it, there we go. So as you guys can see, we have our styling. It's coming along slowly but surely. We do have a 1, 2, 3, 4, which was that. And then I have our answers, which is tag, Simon, says, etc. If I do console.log quickly over here, clean this up, and if I click on one of these, I should have update game info, which is that function over there. So we need to capture the selection of the user, compare it, is it the right answer, and increment the current question so that we can go to the next question with the next answers, and also kind of keep score of how much he got right and how much he got wrong. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to add like a footer part to this, which is going to be the part where we add the like how much you got right. So how much you got right is actually going to be like how much money you got in the bank. That's going to be a footer part, and how much money it's required for you to advance the next stage, which is what you guys are going to be adding to this application. The next stage, yes, I said it. So let's go ahead and click on class name. So this is going to be a container as well. So I'm going to say container. My text is going to be center. I'm going to add a header BG, and I'm going to say padding all around of 2. I want white text with this, and also margin top auto to push it right down to the bottom. In here, I'm going to have it H2 bank, and then my bank is going to be $sign for how much money I have, and I'm going to put in player score, and let me style that H2 as well. So by adding class name and adding the class as text to XL to make it nice and large, and then I'm going to have a border bottom. So I'm just going to have a border bottom right here of 1 pixel, and I'm going to have a border gray. So my border is going to be 500. Just going to add a padding bottom as well of 4 pixels. and then I'm going to have an h4, and this one is just going to say get $8,000. Where is it? Yeah, get $8,000 to advance to next round. I'm obviously going to want to center this, so let's add a class name, and let's add some classes to this, which is just text LG, and I'm going to say text center. Save it, see what we have, and right there in our footer we have currently in the bank is 0, and then we get 8,000 to advance to the next round. So you need to get like $8,000 just to advance to the next round of 10 questions. So as you guys can see, we have most of the look of the application of the quiz app. What we want to do is just add those functionality now. Like if I select an answer, my question should change, my bank account should update if I got the answer correct, and also where I'm at with the question should update. So let's go ahead and add that functionality to our game. So what I'm going to do right here at the top, just below our use effect, I'm going to create a new function. Constant, call this function update score, which is just going to update everything. Basically should just be saying update entire game. So what I'm going to pass through here is the answers index, and also I'm going to pass through the EL for the element, because I want to target the element it was clicked. So let me go ahead and do that, copy that function, and then replace my console.log here with that function and pass those through, which is going to be, so that's going to be the answer index that I'm passing through over there. And also I'm going to be passing through the element. So what I need to do over here is to say this element I'm also going to pass through to there. There we go. So the first thing that you want to check is have we reached our max amount of questions, meaning that are we at 10 questions and do not go to the next question, to question number 11, number 12, etc. So I'm just going to do an if statement there and say if current questions, which is more than max questions, if current question is more than max question, meaning that it become 11, etc., return. So don't execute anything further in this function. And we're gonna do another if statement. So I'm gonna say if answer index, if answer index is equal to, so I'm gonna say current game, and then I'm gonna say current question dot correct. So I'm entering that array again to say go check for me if what was selected by the user is actually the same as what the API provide to us as the right question. So if that is the right question, let's make some updates. So the first update I'm going to make is say set player score, and what I'm going to do is say take current score and then update it. So I'm going to say take the current score and say current score plus 1000. They can actually say 1 or 2 or 3, etc., but I'm just going to say 1000, and I'm going to say take the element, take this current clicked element, the target dot class list, not class name, a target dot class list dot add a new class to it, which will give us that green background. So I'm just going to say add the class correct, and then right here at the bottom I'm going to say else. Sorry about the card that just passed, if you guys can hear that. I'm going to say element dot target dot class list dot add wrong. So that's just going to indicate to you that the selection that you've made was incorrect. And I have this classes already in my CSS. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to do some set timeout. So a set timeout function of actually just like 1 second. So after 1 second, go to the next question. So I'm going to say set current set current question, and I'm saying take the current question and update it to be the current question plus 1. So what I'm saying, if current question, so current question is 0, so take 0 and say add 1. You increment it, basically. That's what I'm saying, increment it by 1, and then that's how we're going to change our game. So if I go ahead and save this, I think this function should actually work. Let's quickly check that. So if I click on tag, you guys would see that my money updated over there to 1000. The number of question now is number 2, and the question changed with the options. If I click on tuning again, you guys will see that the question changed, etc. So we are currently going through the question in our application, which is working just great. What I want to check is custom, let me say do that, do my index.css. I want to make sure I do have these classes. There's my class correct, there's my class wrong. My button primary class is picking up, my header class is picking up, is my button container class, and that was, where's my mapping, there's my mapping. Let's see, there we go. So I added that little blue thing. What I'm missing is just this background, that ugly blue background over there. Should I add it, or should I kind of leave it with the white? That background looks nasty. There we go. You can actually see now I'm selecting the incorrect answer, but now it's not removing it, which is fine. I need to add those remove actually, because it's not removing it. So under here, after setting it, after updating the time, I need to go and say element. So take the current element that has been clicked, say target dot class list dot remove. So where it was correct, remove it. L dot target dot class list dot remove. Where it was wrong, remove it. Save, and let's check it. If I refresh that, if I click on tag, okay, it's not adding element target class list dot add correct. It's misspelled. One last try. Add tag, awesome, we get our green and it goes away. We click another one to get our green, goes away. If we select the incorrect answer, we get that orange that's saying no, incorrect answer. So we actually very close to the end of this application. The next section I'm going to add, it's going to be for you guys, which is for you guys to add the functionality for current game playing, and also for questions, for max questions. What you can do is you can update the amount of questions. You can add functionality to update the amount of questions you want to be asked, limited to 15 because there's only 15 questions. So what you guys need to do is add the functionality for the current game playing. So if the users get more than 8,000, what you need to do is, instead of going to games at position 0, you should actually go to games at current game playing, right? And then you need to increment that as well to say, okay, now we're playing game number 2, which has a different set of questions and a different set of answers. So you guys need to go ahead and add that functionality at this last part of this application, which is just the end screen, and I'm just going to go ahead and add that now. So how I'm adding the end screen is actually with a function as well. So I'm just going to say end game screen, and I'm going to create an arrow function for that. So what I'm going to do is the following. I'm going to do an if statement. So I'm going to say player score is more or equal to 8,000, then do the following. So I'm going to use React fragments because I don't want to add a real element like a div or something like that. I'm just going to add React fragment there, and I'm going to do that, and let's for now just do an empty string. So if the current player now has more than 8,000 or equal to 8,000, means that he can advance to the next set of questions. So let's do the styling for that. I'm just going to do Control B to close the sidebar again. Let's do class name, and let's do container, text center, padding all over of 2 pixels, text white, which is the text color is going to be white, empty, margin top, sorry, of auto, just to push it down to center, and then header back BG. So that's going to be my background color on this. I'm going to add an H2. So my H2 is just going to be the same as the bang, which is basically just the footer part. I want you to show the footer part again, so I can just go ahead and copy this. This is basically the same thing I'm redoing now, just to save time. I can copy that and I'm going to paste that in there. And now that I have that, let's just add the rest of it. So I'm going to add a class name. I'm going to say margin bottom, it's going to be auto. I'm going to add a padding all around of 6, and I'm going to add the header BG custom color that I've added. Going to have an H2 in there. So my H2 is going to be you have advanced and I'm just going to add a paragraph. Let me just copy this off screen quickly. I don't feel like typing it out for the sake of the video. I don't want to make the video too long. So basically it just says you can keep playing to stand to win the cash prize of 20k. Answer the next 5 questions. What will you do? And then we kind of give you an ultimatum. Are you going to keep playing and lose your 8k, or are you just going to take your 8k and call it quits? So let's say flex padding all around of 3. Say text is going to be white. Inside of this div, let's add div and add a class name of here. And the class name is going to be padding on the y axis of 2, padding on the x axis of 5. So this is going to be my buttons actually that I'm creating. Also it's going to be pointer, so I can go ahead and add the btn primary class that I've created, and my corner is going to be rounded XL, and I can say margin right of 3, and this one I'm just going to call cash out. This is going to be the same buttons, the only difference is just the color is going to be different. So this one is going to have the btn primary, but it's going to have a bg green or 500, and then this one is going to say keep playing. Those are my end screen. So basically if you did not get more than 8,000, you got less than that, so we need also to do that for you. I'm going to go ahead and remove those empty strings and just add a div. So this means that you did not get more than the required amount, you failed the game. So I'm going to say margin on the y axis is going to be auto. I'm going to add a padding all around of 6, which is like 24 pixels. I'm going to add that color, that custom background color that I've created. I'm going to do an H2, and in this H2 I'm just going to have you did not advance, and then I'm going to add some class names to this. So the only thing I want to do is just maybe a nice bold font, and also my text size, just make it large. And then below this I'm also going to have another p tag that I'm just quickly going to copy off screen just to save time with this. Open bracket, and let's do another div tag, and inside of this div tag I'm going to have, let's do class name, and I'm going to say display flex, padding all over 3 pixels. not 3 pixels, sorry, padding of 3, and then I'm going to say my color text is going to be white. And then inside of this block, I'm going to have a div tag, which is going to have the text say play again. So what this button actually going to do is reset everything, right? The play again is going to reset everything. I'm just going to go ahead and copy this styling because this is also a button. Sorry, this is supposed to be class name equals to, there we go. So this play again is also a button, so I need to add a function to this actually that goes somewhere. I think we need to add function to this as well that actually does something. So I'm gonna say on click for now. It's just gonna say console.log reset game and start over. So basically this one, this button and this cache out button should do the same thing, right? They should just reset the game and have the user start over. But this keep playing one, this is the one that you guys need to add the functionality to make it move on to the next set of questions that is available in the API for you. I'm going to go ahead there and say console.log. Let's do continue to next set of questions. Okay, now that we have that, what I need to do now is actually add this in the screen so that you guys can see this. So what I'm going to do is just copy that function, go down here, and then in this return I also need to add like a little if statement, and that if statement is just going to be below this who wants to be a millionaire. I need to go ahead, open up my curly brace there, and then close it there, do my else right over there, else return an empty string, and then here to my if current question is not equal to 10 to question mark, and then wrap this with that React. But I also need to return this, so I can go ahead and just remove that and do it here, and same place right there at the bottom. Inside of that break this to close pregnant, sorry, the same thing here. There we go. Because in React everything needs to be wrapped inside, or everything needs to be in one element, and that's why I'm doing that React fragments to wrap everything this in this one element without actually really creating extra element. And then in here I just need to go and do that endgame function and call that function here. So now I can go ahead and save this, and let's see, let's refresh to see if there's no errors. We don't have any errors. And let's see if I do tag, if I do tuning, if I do gold, I do Alaska, I'm at 4, I do northern lights, I do all of the above. Now that's incorrect. Let's do none of the above, that's also incorrect. Let's do that, last one, and we get blank. Why are we getting blank? I don't think we are returning it. So the reason why we're getting blank, because we are not returning it. So I need to go replace those with these. Save it, and there we go. So we got that text back. The text isn't white for some weird reason. Let's quickly check why is my text not white. As you can see, my bank text on top is white. You have, oh sorry, I have advanced, so let's do it here. Text white, save it, there we go. So as you can see, currently telling me that I have advanced to it, that I just need to add a padding there of 4 so you can better see it. and this is like the end screen. So as I've said, if you guys click on cash out, it just resets everything to 0, restarts the game. But if you click on keep playing, you go to the second part of this array, this index over here, and then you continue the game. So I hope you guys have learned something with today's quiz app application. Hit me up in the comments, I'll definitely reply to you guys. And as I've said, it's the end of the video. Smash that like button if you haven't done so. If you like to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button. Don't forget your bell notification button so that you get notified every time I publish a new video. And once you guys have go ahead and added the functionality to this video, hit me up with your links to your GitHub repo so I can go ahead and take a look, and maybe I can put in my 5 cents and see how you guys make this code better, how you guys make this quiz even better, and how I can go ahead and change up mine. Until next time guys, may you all stay safe.